I stood in the doorway of my glass-walled office. The city spread beneath me like a glittering reminder of how far I'd come and how far I'd been pushed. The morning light caught the soft shine of my silk blouse, the one I always wore on days I needed extra strength, though today, it felt more like armor. My phone buzzed on the desk, a brief vibration that crawled straight up my spine. I already knew the name flashing on the screen before I looked. Michael Reynolds, my ex-husband. Even now, months later, the sound of his messages had a way of slicing through my calm. I exhaled slowly, smoothing back a loose strand of hair. The taste of my berry lipstick lingered on my tongue, a reminder that some things, at least, were still mine to choose. It was ironic, really. The day I handed him the keys to a house I bought with quiet pride, he handed me divorce papers with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I didn't break that day. I didn't fall apart. I simply folded the papers, placed them in my bag, and walked out of our home, or rather, the home I had paid for. Now, months later, his name glowing on my screen felt like the universe tapping me on the shoulder. A message from the past demanding to be faced. Long before divorce papers and property deeds, long before I learned how quiet strength feels inside the chest, there was a younger version of me. Ava at 22, standing in a cramped Ohio apartment with trembling hands and a heart that bruised too easily. Back then, I thought love meant shrinking myself so someone else could feel tall. My parents weren't cruel. They were simply tired. Tired of bills, tired of stress, tired of a daughter who dared to dream beyond what they called practical life. When I told them I wanted to move to Chicago for a marketing internship, my mother sighed like I'd asked her to carry the world on her back. "Ava, you're chasing fantasies," she said, rubbing her temples. "You need stability. Michael can give you that." Michael, calm, charming, already working a stable job with benefits. To them, he was the solution. To me, he was comfort until comfort became control. The argument that changed everything is something I still feel in my throat, that dry, tight ache of trying not to cry. "You're being dramatic," Michael said, arms crossed, voice flat. "Chicago is unnecessary. Stay here. We'll get married. You'll find something local. Simple." Simple. The word stung like an insult. My hands shook. I hid them behind my back. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I tried to swallow my emotions, but they rose like a tide. I remember whispering, I want to try, Michael. I want more." He laughed. A short, dismissive exhale that told me exactly what he thought of my more. "You're not built for that world, Ava." That sentence, that one sliced deeper than any divorce paper ever could. That night, when the apartment felt too small and my future felt even smaller, I grabbed my coat and walked to my grandmother's house 3 blocks down. She didn't say anything at first, just opened the door, pulled me in, and let me crumble into her shoulder. When I finally stopped shaking, she pressed something into my palm, a small silver key pendant. "This is for the door you haven't opened yet," she whispered. "Don't let anyone tell you which ones you deserve." Her warmth wrapped around my shivering heart. I went home that night knowing 2 things. I couldn't stay small for anyone. If I didn't leave now, I never would. So I packed a suitcase at dawn, hands still trembling, but this time from determination, not fear. I chose Chicago. I chose the unknown. I chose myself. Chicago didn't welcome me with open arms. It greeted me with cold wind, tiny apartments, and nights where the city lights felt like stars I couldn't quite reach yet. But for the first time in my life, the struggle felt like it belonged to me. I rented a studio so small that when I stretched my arms, my fingers almost touched both walls. The radiator hissed like it had a personal grudge against me, and the only window faced a brick alleyway. But it was mine. Every creaking floorboard, every chipped tile. For the first time, I woke up alone and free. The marketing internship was unpaid, which meant juggling 2 side jobs, a coffee shop morning shift and late-night copywriting gigs I found online. Most nights, I worked until my eyes burned, scrubbing away mascara smudges with the back of my wrist and whispering to myself, "Just keep going, Ava." Self-doubt was a constant roommate. It watched me apply to jobs, whispering that Michael had been right. It watched me practice presentations in front of my bathroom mirror, hair tied up, nail polish chipped, voice cracking at the edges. But every time I felt myself slipping, I held the silver key pendant my grandmother gave me. Cool, grounding, reminder that the door I wanted was still ahead. My mentor arrived in my life like an unexpected sunrise. Her name was Cynthia Hale, a sharp, elegant woman in her late 40s who carried a presence that made entire rooms sit up straighter. She found me at the internship one afternoon, hunched over a project everyone else had dismissed as too tedious. "You have an eye," she said, leaning over my shoulder. I turned, startled. "For fonts," I said, instantly regretting the awkwardness. She laughed softly. "For people. For emotion. You understand what makes someone feel something through words and visuals. That's rare, Ava." Her belief in me was oxygen I didn't know I'd been starving for. Cynthia took me under her wing, letting me shadow her, teaching me how to pitch ideas, how to negotiate fees, how to hold my chin high when people spoke over me. She never babied me. She never doubted me. She simply expected me to rise, and I did. My first big break came at 24. A boutique firm took a chance on my proposal, and I landed a contract that paid more than all my side jobs combined. I cried quietly in the restroom afterward, gripping the sink, mascara running. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of having finally proved to myself that I belonged. Slowly, success began to stack. My first corporate client. My first marketing campaign that went viral. My first 5-figure month. My first luxury condo, bought with my own money. But I never posted any of it online. I never mentioned the promotions, the salary jumps, the nights I went from instant ramen to ordering takeout without checking the price first. Especially not to Michael. We still spoke then, he'd call occasionally, checking in with that tone men use when they think they still hold authority. And every time, I kept my answers simple, understated. Let him think I was doing fine. Let him believe what he wanted. I didn't owe him the truth.
Not yet.
Because deep down I knew. One day, he'd see who I had become. And that day would change everything. The day everything unraveled, or rather, revealed itself, started like any other. I remember adjusting the cuffs of my cream blazer, smoothing the soft fabric over my wrists, and glancing at the framed photo on my office shelf. Me and Cynthia at my first campaign launch. Her arm around my shoulders, my smile too wide to hide. Proof of the life I built without permission from anyone. It was a Friday afternoon when I got the message. "We're in town. Coming to see you, Mom." No warning. No question. Just a statement. A familiar tension rose in my chest, the kind that came from years of being underestimated by the people who were supposed to know me best. They had never visited Chicago, not once in the years I'd been here. They preferred updates from a distance, filtered through assumptions. And now suddenly, they were in town. But I didn't panic. A part of me, the stronger part, knew this moment had been waiting in the corner of my story all along. I texted back, "Come to my office." When they arrived, I watched them through the glass wall before they saw me. My mother looked around, eyes wide, taking in the marble floors, the soft recessed lighting, the reception desk with my company's gold embossed logo behind it, Reynolds Creative Group. My father walked beside her, stiff-backed, clearly unsure of where to look first. Then Michael stepped through the elevator doors behind them. My breath stilled. Not from emotion, but from the surreal timing. He hadn't changed much. Same tailored coat, same calculated posture, same expression that used to make me shrink a little. Except this time, I didn't shrink. He saw them before he saw me. My mother turned to him. "Michael, we didn't know you were coming." He slipped his hands into his pockets, voice practiced and smooth. Ava didn't answer my last message. I assumed she might be here. Of course he had. He always assumed access. I stepped out of my office then, the glass door making a soft click behind me. All three of them turned. My mother's hand flew to her chest. "Ava, this place you work here?" I smiled gently.
"No, Mom.
I don't work here." A pause. Confusion sharpened the air. I let the silence stretch, letting them take in the space, the sleek furniture, the quiet confidence of a place built with intention. Then I added, I own it. My father blinked. You own this company? Yes, I said, stepping closer, calm but unmistakably firm. Every square foot. My mother's lips parted, words failing her. Michael's jaw tightened just barely, the only crack in his steady facade. I invited them into my office, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that made even the skyline feel humbled. They stepped inside slowly, like walking into a cathedral. My desk was clean, minimalist, a single vase of white orchids in the corner. Frames on the wall showed campaigns I'd led, awards I'd won, milestones no one in that room knew I'd achieved. Michael stood near the window, arms crossed. You've been busy. His tone was neutral, but his eyes flicked over my office with a mix of disbelief and something darker, something like regret. I sat down behind my desk and folded my hands. So, I said softly, I'm guessing you didn't all come here just to admire the view. My father cleared his throat. Your mother and we thought you were struggling. You never told us. I know, I cut in gently. Because you never asked. You only ever told. That silence hit harder than any argument could have. And then there was Michael, who finally pulled a folded document from his coat pocket. I came to discuss the house, he said. My mother's head snapped toward him. House. He ignored her, placing the paper on my desk. You bought it in both our names. That ties me financially, too. Michael, I interrupted, sliding the document back toward him with one finger. The house is not in both our names. His brows pinched. But you said. I said I bought a house. I leaned in, voice calm as water, but sharp as truth. I never said I put your name on it. A rush of heat spread across his face. I continued. You handed me divorce papers the day I gave you the keys. Do you remember that? He didn't answer. My lawyer finalized everything. Clean separation. Every asset reverted to the rightful owner. My mother gasped softly. My father looked down at the polished floor. And Michael, for the first time ever, seemed small. I stood. The house is mine, I said simply. It always was. The truth settled between us like a quiet earthquake, shaking everything without making a sound. For a long moment, no one spoke. It was almost peaceful, the kind of silence that follows truth when it finally settles where it belongs. I walked to the window, fingers brushing the cool edge of the glass as I looked out over the city I had built myself inside of. The skyline glowed, steady and unapologetic, a reflection of the woman I had become. When I turned back to them, my voice was calm, not angry, not triumphant, just certain. Let's talk about why you're here. My mother swallowed. Ava, sweetheart, we didn't know. We thought you needed help. I smiled gently. I did need help, just not the kind you thought. She lowered her eyes, shame dimming her voice. We pushed you toward Michael because we thought he could give you stability. And I gave it to myself, I said softly. I just needed the space to grow without being told I wasn't enough. My father spoke then, voice gravelly. We were wrong. That's clear now. I walked to them, stopping just a few feet away, close enough to feel their regret, far enough to remember who I used to be around them. I'm willing to have a relationship with you, I said. But there will be conditions. My mother lifted her head slowly, bracing herself. The first, I continued, is simple. You will stop measuring me by what you think is safe. Stop deciding my limits before I even try. I don't need approval. I need respect. She nodded immediately, tears gathering in her eyes. My father exhaled, shoulders sinking. We can do that, Ava. I believe them, but belief doesn't erase boundaries. Second, I added, you have to work on your own dreams again. The ones you buried under bills and fear. I'm not your replacement hope. I'm not responsible for fixing your regrets. My mother covered her mouth as the tears finally slipped through. Not from accusation, but recognition. And the third condition, I said quietly, is honesty. No more hiding discomfort behind judgment. If something scares you, say it. If something confuses you, ask. Don't choose silence, and call it concern. They both nodded, humbled. Then I turned to Michael. He stood stiffly, arms at his sides, jaw tight. I could see the storm brewing behind his composed expression, pride dented, control slipping like sand through his fingers. "Your turn," I said. He raised his chin slightly. "I don't need anything from you." I smirked softly. "That's the problem. You still think this conversation is about need." For the first time, he faltered. I stepped closer, voice low but steady. "Michael, I'm not here to punish you. I don't want anything from you either. Not money, not apologies, not closure." His jaw clenched. "But there is one condition if you want to keep any form of civility between us." He swallowed. "What condition?" "You will stop telling people the story your way. Stop painting me as the girl who couldn't handle life. Stop pretending the house was yours. And stop using my old self as a prop for your comfort." A flicker of something, guilt? Realization? Crossed his eyes. "You don't get to rewrite me," I said. "Not anymore." He nodded, defeated but understanding. "And one more thing," I added, picking up the silver key pendant resting on my desk. "You taught me what staying small looks like. For that, genuinely thank you." His confusion softened into something almost human. "This key," I said, "is for the doors I still haven't opened." I placed it gently around my neck, reclaiming the piece of me that had started it all. My parents watched, tears and pride mingling. Michael watched, silent and humbled. And for the first time, I finally felt it. The power was mine. Not because I won, but because I chose myself. In the weeks that followed, everything softened. Not instantly, not perfectly, but enough to feel the shift. My mother began calling me without the familiar edge in her voice. Instead of offering warnings disguised as advice, she asked real questions. She told me she started painting again, something she'd abandoned when life became more about survival than expression. Her voice carried a shy excitement I hadn't heard since childhood. My father enrolled in evening classes at the community center to finish the degree he left behind decades ago. "It's strange," he told me during one of our calls. "I forgot how good it feels to learn something new." He wasn't chasing lost time. He was reclaiming it. And Michael? He stayed quiet, as I'd asked. No more dramatic messages. No more subtle attempts to insert himself into a story that no longer held a place for him. He faded from the edges of my life like a chapter that had been read, understood, and closed. I didn't hate him. Hate is heavy, and I had carried enough weight for too many years. What I felt was closer to gratitude, not for the pain, but for the clarity it carved inside me. One evening, as the sky melted into shades of lavender and gold, I sat in my office alone, the city humming softly beneath me. I held the silver key pendant between my fingers, its surface warm from the heat of my skin. My grandmother had passed 2 years earlier, but her voice felt closer now than ever. "This is for the door you haven't opened yet." Back then, I thought she meant Chicago, or my career, or my independence. But sitting there, watching the glow of the city I had claimed as my own, I finally understood. The door had always been me. The version of myself who didn't apologize for dreaming too big. The woman who didn't shrink in love, or bend for approval, or let someone else's fear define the shape of her life. The woman who bought a house for a man and then walked away from him without losing herself. The woman who became her own stability. I stood by the window, the evening breeze drifting through the barely open pane, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely, beautifully, whole. The house was still mine. My story was still mine. My future was entirely, unmistakably mine. And as the last line of sunlight slipped behind the skyline, I whispered a quiet promise to the girl I used to be. "You were never meant to stay small.